Wally, go entertain the crowd. Go entertain Bill Gorman, Wally. You didn't see any of that. Bill, I'm about to go to bed, so if you want to finish our conversation. Wally. Wally, give me a kiss. Wally. Want kisses from Wally? There they are. There that kiss. Bill Gorman, I'm about to go to bed and shut it down, man. My internet keeps crashing. Wallace, no. Gone. Gone. Come around here. Come here. Come on. Is there, Wally? Wally. That was a little woman with a... That was a little woman with a... Yeah. Why? Why torture someone? Spark plug Sparky. What do you know about Finn? I read his books. But how do you mean? Wait, where does it go? I don't know. The heart, right? What's the presa? La presa. Yeah, I was just looking that up. The outlet or the grip or the taking. La presa de la Acequia Madre. Is that somewhere near Santa Fe? Don't you have to be at least 8 point something miles north of Santa Fe? It's about to be the laziest chat ever. There's my new Victorian. Doesn't work, my hat's getting hit. That didn't work so well. Alright, I'm about to watch a YouTube video on underwater USOs, unidentified submergible objects. Have you heard of those?
I'll never find.
Looks like we got some other people watching. Can you other guys chime in? Sparky, anything you want to talk about? A lot. All right. Like what? What's the a lot you want to talk about, Sparky?
Lion Financial. Financing parents' peace of mind since 1979.
Did you know that the vast majority of self-published books don't sell more than a few copies? It's because their authors didn't take the time to get them professionally edited or designed. On Readsy, you can find the perfect editor, proofreader, or cover designer for your book without breaking the bank, and ensure that the book you put out into the world stands out among major bestsellers. Browse through hundreds of hand-picked editors, filter your search by genre, service, or even keyword, check their portfolios and reach out to ideal candidates. Create your free Readsy account today and publish the bestseller of the world.
If you finally finished writing your book and you're ready to get it published, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Sarah from Spines, the fastest growing book publisher in the US. Every week, hundreds of authors just like you reach out to our publishing experts to learn more about the most affordable and effective way to get their book published. So if you're ready to share your story with the world, book your free consultation now and let's get your book published.
Community. So I work closely with the Office of Naval Intelligence and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency where he was. In fact, I know the last 5 directors personally, and have, so that he is what he says he is, 100%. And so I'm sure of everything he's. And I also know how the government works. So, like for example, he talks about these SABs that he couldn't get access to, but he knew people who were, and they were telling him about it, the special access programs. And I've had that happen to me too, where, and this is like the Wilson memo. Do you know about that?
No, I don't.
Okay, I never thought I'd be so well versed in UAP lore to someone like you. But here we go. The Wilson memo is something, I forgot how it was leaked, but a physicist named Eric Davis, who was supposedly in the program, the UAP retrieval program, I don't know for sure, but he drafted a memo that got leaked, and it was a memo recording his interview with Admiral Wilson, who had a top intel job, and he was complaining that he heard about a UAP retrieval program in this memo, and this is the interview that he transcribed, Davis transcribed, and he was complaining that he couldn't get access to it because he didn't have a need to know. And when I read that, it reminded me of me, because here I was, a 1-star. I had my people were working with technology under a certain SAP, and I wanted to learn about that more so I could make better decisions for my people. And I had the SAP control officer say, no, sir, you don't have a need to know. And I thought that was BS. Here I am. I'm responsible for their well-being. I got to make sure they have all they need. If they're using something, this is totally in my right to, because I am responsible for their outcomes and their well-being, to know what they're working with. Oh no. What if it was hazardous to their health? Nope, you don't need to know, sir. So that's what Brush was talking about, that these people running the crash retrieval program they're leaving Congress in the dark, and they're not letting others with authority and responsibility know either. And that gets down to being illegal.
I mean, it sounds like a rogue entity.
Totally.
Who would be running that?
Exactly. That's not how our government's supposed to work. It's not according to the Constitution as I know it.
Is it government?
Well, I don't know. But again, the most recent article from Chris Mellon today, I believe there is some Air Force oversight. I've also heard that there are contractors involved, big defense contractors, who of course have an interest in not letting that technology get out because they don't want to have to compete to use it. They want to have that exclusive right. So I believe that's going on. I don't know for sure.
Let's go into the interdimensional stuff. What do you know about that?
So I don't know anything.
You don't know anything.
I really don't. I mean, this is all people theorizing. I know there's a lot of math out there that can characterize multiple dimensions. String theory is one of them. And it's funny because Avi Loeb just thinks string theorists are worthless because he doesn't think, there's no evidence. He's about, okay, show me the data. If there are other dimensions, I want to see the data. And that's kind of like Grush. Grush, he said no one's seen the alien bodies yet, but now I have another story if you want to get into that. There's a well-known UAP legend out there on Nixon and Jackie Gleason. Do you know about that? Here I am again. I had never thought it'd be such a wealth of UAP stories. Okay, so Jackie Gleason was friends with Nixon, and he was kind of a UFO nut for some reason. And this has just come out, you can Google it, that there's some legend that before Nixon left office, he went with Gleason to an Air Force base in the South, and he showed him what was supposed to be a UFO with aliens, like in some warehouse. Aliens that had perished in some kind of crash. Now, this is the legend, right? Okay. Interestingly, I'm fishing in Key West last year, and my guide was pretty interested in this topic, and he connected me to another fisherman who I had a nice call with, and he's been interviewed on this publicly. His name is Mark Croca, and Mark has been seeing UAP in the skies off the Keys for over 10 years, and big lighted cylindrical type objects that are clearly not U.S. aircraft. And he's actually seen jets from, I believe, the Florida Air Force Base down there sortie after these things, or scramble. So Mark and I talked about it. He's seen these often, and he shared with me about this Jackie Gleason thing, because he said when he was a kid, he worked as an assistant or janitor in this clubhouse in Florida that Jackie Gleason used to golf at, and his wife. And he met his wife after I think he passed, and she shared that story and stated it was 100% legit. that Gleason saw what he saw. It disturbed him a lot. He didn't eat for a week. He was so just upset with his whole worldview had been changed. And but this is again hearsay from a friend. But fishermen are really good observers, by the way. This guy didn't have any reason to like give me a story. He doesn't make his money off of this. But Mark has that knowledge of that whole story.
Interesting. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on whether these are built by, the military-industrial complex type companies, or are they from,
Hit pause on whatever you're listening to and hit play on your next adventure. This fall, get double points on every qualifying stay. Life's a trip. Make the most of it at Best Buster. Visit bestbuster.com for complete terms and conditions.
Why are we called Northern Tool and Equipment and not Northern Tool and Tom Field? Unlike the big box stores, you get the heavy-duty stuff you want without the lightweight stuff you don't. Northern Tool and Equipment. Get serious.
Let's start with the end of the world, why don't we? Get it over with and move on to more interesting things. Those first two sentences introduce the fact that
foreign governments? Are they paranormal activity? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, one of the experts on this field is Jacques Vallée. He's been researching UAP since the 60s. He's just the expert, and I like his thinking. So I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm still new to this whole field, but I like his thinking on it. He gives a really good talk at the Soul Foundation symposium. He gave one, and it's online. And he just characterized the fact that they are real. People have real experiences. And Diana Pasulka does the same thing in her book Encounters. She just chronicles all these experiences. And a lot of people are having really strange experiences. Many see craft. There's a paranormal component to it with either telepathic communication or other things. And I don't dismiss any of it. This is what Jacques says. He said, all that can be said is there is just a massive diversity in the types of experiences people have. You have one camp that call it they're just focused on the nuts and bolts craft. And then you have people that are looking at that more paranormal aspect of it, and that's what exists. It's sort of like a spectrum of experiences. And I don't dismiss any of it. To me, it's people are having experiences, they report it, they're credible people, and there's a lot of them. And thus, my goal is to scientifically study it more and remove the stigma from it.
How are you going to remove the stigma?
Shows like yours, this one right here, getting it out there. And here's the reason that I'm out talking about this. One is more credible people stepping up will help remove that stigma, and then also what's interesting is over time you'll see a generational shift in that there are a lot more young people open to this right now. It's just they think about it. And they have more open minds. Interestingly, there's a parallel here that I've talked about in some of my speeches. Diana Pasulka talks in her book, or she interviews a person named Ia Whiteley. And she's also one of these researchers that's helping with the Soul Foundation effort to study UAP and the phenomena. And her expertise is psychology. And she has made her living, if you will, by studying both cockpit psychology, if you will, and human factors, as well as space capsule human factors. And so she's advised the ESA, I believe, and she noticed that in the 50s, let's say, after World War II, there was a big stigma for pilots to report safety issues in the cockpit because they would fear that if they couldn't handle something, they might get a low rating and get a poor performance evaluation, and that it was the macho thing, the right stuff. No one's going to admit they couldn't handle a certain thing, and it was only after a lot of planes fell out of the sky and pilots died that safety measures started to be studied, and and reporting for incidents in the cockpit about safety issues became accepted. And she studied this over time, and it took 25 years for that change to occur, which is a professional generation. And I think that's what's happening now. Congress has gotten out, a lot of credible scientists have gotten out, people like me, former national authorities. We're coming out to remove that stigma, to make this a credible scientific endeavor. I'm even working with a group to establish a master's degree program in UAP studies. So that's happening. And then so that I think that's what's going to remove the stigma, and it's already occurring.
What's that going to entail? The master's degree on UAP studies?
Yeah, well, really, I'd love to see a physics-based or engineering-based one, but that information's not out there yet in terms of crash retrieval. This one's going to be a humanities-based one that looks at some of the cultural and anthropological and societal issues around UAP, which there are many. I mean, if we're being visited by other civilizations with huge technology powers, what does that mean for society and everything else that could be possible with that?
I mean, do you think there's different kinds? Do you think that there is a possibility that some of these are kind of nuts and bolts types crafts, and some are maybe something to do with consciousness, maybe something to do with some type of spirituality type stuff? I mean, what are you thinking?
I think the answer is yes, both.
To both.
I do. Think about this. So again, evolution. If we technology-wise walk our species forward 1,000, 1,000,000 years, my gosh, I mean, what will we have? I told you earlier, I was the last Naval Academy class not to have a computer. I wrote papers on an actual typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with one of these, I can access everything that humankind has ever discovered just with a few clicks.
Mm-hmm.
So think about, what about that? So with that in mind, it could be anything. So think about the evolution of both technology and the human brain and thought. So I accept our consciousness as what it is, but what about that evolving too? Think about that. A more highly evolved species will have a more highly evolved consciousness. We're not Neanderthals anymore. We're something we think is higher, and I think that's true. Walk that 1,000, 1,000,000 years. Then what are we going to be like? So I think that's, and Diana Pasulka does a great job looking into that consciousness aspect of it, because then you're also bordering, or you're really overlapping with religion now. And that's what she is. She's a professor of religious studies. And get this, she's terrific. She has access to the Vatican archives because of her position as a professor of religious studies. And she has gone through and looked at all this church history. And she has, in her book, American Cosmic and Encounters, and now in recent talks, she's pretty much deduced that these ascent narratives that exist in the Bible and the church history have some UAP either connection or explanation. So Diana, in her book, Encounters, and then American Cosmic, and then some of her talks later, she's looked at some of the church's history and writings from biblical scholars, and she has found that there are examples of apparitions, or what they call ascent narratives, that are indicative of actual UAP, so encounters. So for example, there's this really famous story of Saint Francis of Assisi. I believe he was the one who cared for animals, and a lot of people wear pendants with him featured on that. And the story is that he saw an angel, and the angel somehow connected to him, and he received the wounds of Christ in his hands. And there's paintings out there. There's one in the Louvre I just saw, and it shows the angel, and these beams are shooting down into his hands, and he's having that moment where he connects with this Jesus Christ and maybe his messenger. And so Diana has gone to the Vatican archives and looks up the actual story, like not what you read about in church in a sermon, but the Latin text. And this wasn't some like beautiful beatific, what did we say? Beautiful angel giving his good graces or her good graces to St. Francis. He is experiencing horrible wounds. He has pain, and he even, I think, dies from them. And he doesn't describe it as an angel. He describes it basically as what probably is a craft. And this is radiation or something. So I don't know the exact nature of it, but she clearly, in her study of this, has found instances of these visitations that are of beings, and they're not as angelic and nice as we'd like to think they are.
Wow. Which way are you leaning? Do you lean more one way than the other?
So again, I can just acknowledge that this is occurring. I don't know exactly what it all is. I'm open to any possibility and all of the above if that's really what's happening. I can speak to only what I know and what data I see, and that's why we need to keep moving forward with research and more universities coming on board and studying this. And me at my level, I want the national academies who on one of their boards, as well as the White House, I'm on one of their advisory committees. I want them to start taking this stuff seriously and put together the best scientists in the world to get at it.
When it comes to kind of exploring underwater stuff and coming from inside the Earth, I mean, where do we start to explore that?
Well, this is what I think we should do. So we already have a pretty active exploration effort nationally with my former agency, NOAA, and they coordinate with others. For example, that one program I mentioned with a dedicated ship and with the ROV. We also end up funding other groups. My friend Robert Ballard, discoverer of Titanic, he has his own group called the Ocean Exploration Trust and his own ship. And so NOAA funds him. They fund a few others, and then you have universities doing some of this work too. And then you even have people in the private sector looking for oil and gas. I think what we need to do is harness that ongoing effort nationally and globally of exploring our ocean and ensuring that UAP, these underwater objects, are a part of the research targets and agenda. Because right now, no one's looking for them really. No one considers them worthy of scientific study. So when a ship goes out, they don't say, we're going to study plankton and maybe some undersea vents, and we're going to look for UAP. They don't do that. In fact, here's a good example, and it's in this paper I wrote for the Soul Foundation. Richard Dolan, in his book, that's not yet been published, but I looked at the draft, he cites a story reported in a Navy log. The USS Maury, I think it was 1946, reported, and they were a bathymetric survey ship. They were using sonar to map the seafloor. And they had primitive sonar back then. They only had an echo sounder, which is like one beam looking down. Now we have a multi-beam, which is sort of like a fan. It can do a lot more mapping. And they reported they're mapping this area in the Pacific, and they reported a large object. So what happened is all of a sudden they saw really shallow depth recordings for a long time, maybe even over a football field size probably, and then it kind of disappeared. And they thought, what the hell is that? Is that some kind of undersea mountain? And they went back, and it didn't exist anymore. Now you can get sonar reflections from things like plankton, but not really hard echoes. So that was an example of them, and they just basically threw the data out. So the idea would be, let's be open to that kind of stuff. And by the way, again, I know of classified data where you can see the stuff in imagery. So we should be using all the things we have. Overhead that looks at the ocean, like NASA has satellites that look at the ocean. So does NOAA. We should be taking everything we have, ships, and just, I guess, opening the aperture to not just study the Earth and the ocean, but to look for UAP too.
Interesting.
And that's what I want to do at this national level with this thing called the Ocean Research Advisory Panel that advises the White House on ocean issues. I'm on it, and I want to get UAP to be a national ocean research priority and put in directives like that. So the way it works here, the White House every year puts a thing out called something like the FY whatever R&D priorities memo. And this year's, and the ones when I was in the Trump administration, we'd have artificial intelligence on there. We had ocean exploration on there. And so we should, I want to get UAP in the ocean and atmosphere on that letter. Now again, it's right now you need an administration that's going to buy off on that kind of policy, and right now we're not seeing those signals. So
Interesting. Well, let's take a quick break.
yeah.
It's the final game, folks. This one wins the series. If it's important, it's not worth compromising, which is why with Farmers, you don't have to compromise quality to get great savings on your insurance. Here, take mine.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
If there is trouble in your business, Poole Huffman aggressively litigates cases to trial.
I want to tell you about this business venture I've been on for about the past 7-8 months.
Aspect of what we can discover by looking into UAP more. That's just incredible what we could find. But then there's this maritime security aspect. And think about this. Okay, we know we're seeing objects like the USS Omaha saw an object go in the water, a UFO. I told you about these other incidents like in Canada. And then there's other reports and classified information I know of well of overhead imagery that have seen these things. But so if these things are basically roaming at will in our water space, what does that say about our maritime security? So think about this. Navy submarines, they are incredibly vigilant in not interacting with the bottom when they can. I told you about those 2 collisions, and other submarines and objects. They have these detailed procedures they call water space management whenever they're operating in a training area or an operational area. And they also have this protocol they call Prevention of Mutual Interference, PMI, WSM, PMI. And they're religious about it. Of course, because this will ruin your day. We've had submarine accidents in the past, like the Thresher and the Scorpion. We don't want to do that. Plus, there are nuclear reactors on board. We don't need those things contaminating the water. All sorts of reasons to do our due diligence and not having submarines inadvertently hit something. But these things, and I mentioned that submariner who I talked about, his observation, they are roaming at will in our water space. And if we don't even know the full extent of how they're operating in the water space, how are we going to do against the Chinese in the Western Pacific, which is a matter of sooner rather than later in terms of taking Taiwan?
Yeah, I think that's coming down the pipe really soon too.
Yeah, absolutely is. I mean, you see what they're doing. They're preparing for a long haul. They're doing everything that you would expect them to do in terms of energy stockpiling, building coal plants, all these things that they need to be ready for if we impose sanctions against them, preventing energy supply and other trade issues like that. They're preparing for it. All the open source reports show it clearly.
I don't know how we would prevent energy supply. How would we prevent energy supply? I mean, they've got the lithium mines in Afghanistan that we've abandoned. They've got lithium mines all over Mexico. They've got pretty much of
Iranian oil.
Iranian oil, Russian coal.
Yeah.
It seems like they've got that pretty much.
They're going to do fine.
Do you think any? Let's say that does kick off.
Which I don't.
Do you think we're going to see any of this new technology become exposed if that were to kick off?
That's interesting because highly likely. Well, and here's what some people say, oh, if there was that kind of technology in the hands of the government or a contractor, being UAP technology, we would have already seen it on the battlefield. And I'd say, that may be partially valid. First of all, from what I understand, we've not been very good at reverse engineering. We tried, but this is just from some sources. And the other aspect is that I don't know if we would have deployed it in what we've been involved with currently.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
And I don't see
An application.
What would we have deployed it up against?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And how would it have helped?
Yeah, no, certainly not in Iraq and Afghanistan. But China could be a different thing in terms of undersea capabilities. That's what's going to be very interesting.
For us or for them? Undersea
Both.
capabilities?
Both, because think about this. What if they have reverse engineered something that we don't know about? Now, after I left the government, I didn't keep my clearance, so I don't know of anything. But they have, from the time I left the Navy in 2017 to now, they have surged. They've become the largest Navy in the world. That's daunting.
Yeah.
In a very short time.
Yeah, I think it would be very interesting, and I hope we don't go there, but if World War III kicks off or a China, US, Russia type Iran war kicks off, I mean, I think we're going to see some new technologies being unveiled.
Yeah, that'll be, well, I know it's already happening, and it's not necessarily being withheld, and that's drone technology. So there's an interesting thing.
Space.
And space, yeah, exactly. The thing, that's a field I'm steeped in and do for my consulting is ocean drone programs, and that's really advanced in a huge way. And that's what's interesting is, okay, you asked me earlier, okay, what should be done? Well, we need to explore more of our ocean. We need to consider UAP when we explore it. But, and how are we going to do it? Well, we currently have ships, satellites, and we have a good amount of drones. A lot of companies, a lot of government agencies like mine are using different types of ocean drones to monitor and measure ocean properties. And that is just expanding rapidly. And in fact, I just read about Australia getting a very large ocean drone, a UUV, uncrewed underwater vehicle, that they were able to build rapidly and are going to be fielding. So that's an area that's going to proliferate. And that can be brought to bear in looking for more undersea UAP. It should be. It's less expensive, ship time is very costly, and the technology is rapidly advancing. And in fact, I wrote an article in the U.S. Naval Institute Proceedings about this. It was titled something like Ocean Drones, a Revolution in Ocean Robots or something. And but I kind of chronicled the history of ocean uncrewed systems. We used some targets, I think in the 20s, surface vessels that were uncrewed for aerial targets, and then I think in the 50s, University of Washington did the first uncrewed underwater vehicle or autonomous underwater vehicle to go into the Arctic ice, and then it's just exploded after that. And right now, and regarding China, the DoD has initiated this program called Replicator, and some of my companies that I work for are going after it, and to prevent Taiwan from being invaded, they want to flood the Western Pacific with thousands of what they call attritable all-domain autonomous systems. So kinetic things that can autonomously go and just saturate any kind of attempt to invade from the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So that's just caused all of the industry in the U.S. and elsewhere to start scaling up big time in terms of using autonomous systems. And I think these can all be employed for looking at the ocean too in a way that will make it, again, much more less opaque as it is and hard to understand.
I mean, going back to seeing maybe some technologies become unveiled, I mean, I got a couple of questions. I didn't even know how to structure these, but so I'm just going to fire them off randomly. But, you had watched, you had mentioned that you had seen the UFO whistleblower series I had.
Yeah.
What did you think about the gentleman that was in Antarctica as a firefighter that was talking about that
Yeah.
neutrino laser?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you, I mean, you're the perfect person to ask about this.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know. I wasn't tapped in or read into anything involving that. So I don't know. I don't have firsthand knowledge. But here's what I can tell you is certainly in the last few months, the more I'm learning about what has been covered up and developed, if you will, or it is, or both, I don't dismiss anything now. I'm willing to take anything at its face value. It really, and like your friend Michael Herrera, what he observed, with some paramilitary force who from an agency we don't know, and with a UAP, and et cetera. I would have dismissed that last year, but not now.
Yeah.
The things I'm seeing and the way that we're just not, we're not acknowledging what we're doing.
Well, the reason I'm asking about the neutrino laser in particular is weather. You know, weather manipulation. We've seen all these things that used to be kind of conspiracy-ish are now kind of hitting the mainstream. Things like, I mean, I remember thinking it was crazy talking about chemtrails from airplanes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and